Welcome everyone to day 3 of our teaching. Sorry for the delays, and we're expecting Eskom to cut us any moment. So then we'll just have to reboot as well. So welcome everybody to day 3 of our teaching. We've had some very exciting discussions so far, and that is going to continue today. Today we are welcoming Mr. Sikonathi Mantshantsha. He is an award-winning financial journalist. He's worked for a number of different media companies, such as he's worked for FinWeek, Fin24, Business Day, Financial Mail, and he has recently rejoined News24 as a financial journalist. But also of interest to us, given our topic this week, is that he served as, up until fairly recently, as the Eskom spokesperson. And so that also gives him some very valuable insights to share with us today. Given our delays, I'm not going to spend any more time introducing our speaker, but let him speak for himself. We welcome Mr. Sikonathi Mantshantsha, and we'd love to hear what you have to tell us about how to resolve our power crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I hear we are going to lose power if we have not lost it already. For the next 4 hours or 5 hours. I hope you all understand what load shedding is and why we are having load shedding. And thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to keep my talk very brief and basic and hope that I hear more from you. I don't have the solutions to the energy crisis, but does one person want to tell us why we are having load shedding? Just shout, anyone, please. ANC. All right. Anyone else? I hear leadership at the front. One more person, please. Corruption. All of you are actually correct, except not accurate. No, you are correct. We are having load shedding because we do not have enough capacity or enough power stations to give us all the power we want. So today, everybody in South Africa will be without electricity for 9 hours in total. At stage 6, it's 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours, and then 4.5 hours. At stage 4, if we have stage 6 the whole day, you have load shedding for 12 hours a day. That means we are not able to have all the electricity we want for 12 hours in a day, and that includes the hours people need to use the electricity with heavy machines. That actually means no economic activity is going on, jobs are getting lost, and everyone else that can produce goods, we will have to buy from them. That means imports, job losses here at home. But so this is not a serious presentation at all. It's just something to guide our discussion. The person that said load shedding is caused by the ANC, as I have said, all of you are actually correct, but not accurate. So let's get a little more accurate. So in South Africa, we have one company that produces electricity, Eskom, or it should produce electricity. It is owned fully by the South African government, controlled fully by the South African government. The South African government appoints the people that manage and lead Eskom in the form of the board of directors, in the form of the chief executive and the senior managers. So the responsibility for solving the problem lies with the owner of Eskom who by law has decided that only government, specifically the energy minister, and this is the Electricity Regulation Act of 2006. So we'll only deal with facts today. It says the Minister of Energy must decide how much capacity this country needs. That means how many power stations we need and what technology, be it nuclear, coal, renewables, and wind and solar panels. The minister by law is empowered to make that decision and award the license to whoever must build the power stations. Now, let's repeat again. Eskom is fully controlled by the government of the Republic of South Africa. Here's some truth. The first one at the top there is a report published in January 2008 by News 24. And I just grabbed the first paragraph. Thabo Mbeki admitted last month that his government should have heeded pleas by Eskom several years ago to invest more in electricity generation to keep up with the country's growth. And a direct quote, when Eskom said to the government, we think we must invest more in terms of electricity generations, we said no, and we is the government. We said no, but all you will be doing is just to build excess capacity. That was in his speech in Bloemfontein on the 11th of December 2007 at an ANC fundraising gala dinner. That the next line comes from the Star, the day after Mbeki made that speech. So he then went on and apologized to the people of South Africa on behalf of the government and said Eskom was right. They said we must build power stations, and we said no, and we is government. He apologized in 2007 to all of South Africa and said, we are fixing this problem. Now, Eskom had to say, we need power stations. Can you give us permission to build? Which was denied, as Mbeki admits this. Then some amnesia attacks Mbeki and all of us, well, many of us in South Africa. If I may play just there's YouTube links here that I wanted to play, Dr. Nyoga. I don't know how I would get that. So let's start with Mbeki's one, that link there. It's probably just a minute or two. This is now Mbeki making this speech.
Even former President Thabo Mbeki is weighing in on the troubles at Eskom. And he says the current Eskom management has to be held accountable for the electricity crisis. But he also says former managers at the SOE need to be examined as well. He was speaking at UNISA just a little earlier. Take a listen.
In order to dealing with this electricity, it's to keep the lights on now. But I think to understand the company better, you need to go further back. Yeah. Who took decisions like that? One explanation I have seen for that, it is said that the managers were in charge of this. It said they want to increase the possibilities for Black economic empowerment. So that if you now have 20 contracts, that means 20 Black companies. If you had one contract, I suppose means one Black company. That's the explanation that was given. But that's part of the crisis. As you can see now, when the Eskom announces that, the reason we're having level 4, level 5, or whatever, is because there's a power failure at Medupi, at Kusile, and the old ones. Why are the new ones behaving in the same way as the old ones? Or misbehaving in the same way? I think we need to understand all of that in order to, as part of the contribution to the solution of the problem of ESCOM.
He asks, who took those decisions? He doesn't know. He was Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa in 1996 when ESCOM made formally a request. In his quote there, he said, ESCOM said, we think we should. No, ESCOM said, let us build power stations. And we must grow capacity at 3% per annum if we want economic growth of 5%. Government said, no, do not build power stations. That was in 1996 when ESCOM formally made the application. It did so every year since and was finally permitted only in 2004 to start building. Medupi Power Station was the first, budgeted at 70 billion rand, 2,400 megawatts in capacity. Kusile Power Station was the next, budgeted at 70 billion rands, 2,400 megawatts capacity. What was finally built? Let's repeat this again. The government of the Republic of South Africa is totally in charge of what ESCOM does because it makes those decisions. It licenses ESCOM to do what must be done. Now, who took those decisions? Let's fast forward, please. Let's fast forward to the 25th of March, 2015. The first bout of load shedding occurred in 2006.
Lock nodes giving you nightmares? Trust Iliaden to unblock it. Works fast in 25 seconds. Lasts lock for up to 12 hours. Iliaden.
Has moved quickly to deploy senior managers to its power stations to ensure that maintenance takes place and that load shedding is kept to a minimum. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa announced this in Parliament as legislatures insisted they be briefed about the extent of the crisis at the power utility.
Ramaphosa's reassurance comes as reports are rife in Parliament that ESCOM's board is about to vote to remove Chairperson Zola Tsotsi.
The Deputy President was at pain to calm nerves. He says the war room is getting all stakeholders together, including business and municipalities, to resolve crisis at ESCOM. Ramaphosa says no stone will be left unturned to stabilize the power utility.
I'd like to assure all South Africans that we are addressing this problem. It is quite a complex problem, and it is not yesterday's problem. It emanates from our past, and we need to address it collectively with cool heads, with strong will, knowing that we will overcome this.
A warm welcome for the president at ESCOM. But the question on everyone's minds, will there be rolling blackouts like last year as winter sets in?
We monitor all the power stations.
After being taken through operations, the president was visibly impressed.
The presentation convinced me that indeed there will never be a load shedding again in our country. In fact, it was indicated that in the very near future we'll have surplus energy. I'm as excited as anything as I leave ESCOM now, because energy is very important to the life of people. But I also had an opportunity to see the place where they monitor the flow of energy throughout the country, and they are able to control it, and therefore further convinced me that this company knows what it is doing.
For the man who's been tasked with keeping the lights on, an even clearer message.
We do expect to go through winter without load shedding. We expect to go through the next summer without load shedding, and the next winter and the next summer. Njalo njalo.
And then it was off to SAA. Here, the national carrier is still facing some challenges.
Njalo njalo.
And of course, one of the success stories, which we don't talk about much, I'm going to be participating in a session on energy, is how we were able to overcome our energy challenges. And as we all know, we had enormous challenges and many people thought the wheels are coming off, but we were able, through focused attention and cooperating with a whole range of partners, to ensure that our energy is much more secure. And as it is now, things like load shedding and blackouts are things of the past.
Now, Mr. Ramaphosa, in that last video, spoke in March 2023. Let's repeat that. In March 2023, load shedding is a thing of the past. Thabo Mbeki, on the 21st of September 2022, wants to know who took these decisions. Jacob Zuma, in March 2016, says load shedding will be a thing of the past. That is 7 years ago. Ramaphosa in 2015 says load shedding will be a thing of the past. That is 8 years ago. The first occurrence of load shedding was in 2006. So in this room, there's a generation of people who believe that it is normal to not have sufficient electricity. It is not. It's a total failure by the government of the Republic of South Africa. Now, of course, we are able to discuss electricity today, but if any of you has had the unfortunate of having to go to a clinic, to a hospital, have had to call the police or ambulance, driving on the road, total failure everywhere. Cholera is killing people in the 21st century in Africa's most developed and industrialized economy. Potholes, you go everywhere. No service delivery whatsoever. So what is the problem? What is the problem? Then I'll leave you to answer that question. Let's repeat again. Today, the post office is being liquidated. You can never send anything of value through the post office. It's controlled by the government. SABC, controlled by the government. Eskom, controlled by the government. The South African Police Service, controlled by the government. Public hospitals, public schools, all controlled by the government. Show me one success, one institution that is running as it should, and then tell me what is the problem. SARS is running very well. Absolutely, because it has to collect the money that has to be stolen. Before you can steal the money, it must be collected from you and I, from your parents. Then it will be stolen. That's why it's working very well. You don't mess up with that. Let's go back to the problem of electricity, and our task is to find a solution. So these are the people that have been running Eskom over the years. Let's repeat. Eskom is the Electricity Supply Commission, Eskom with a C, and the Afrikaans version is Eskom. Established in March 1923 by a gentleman named Van der Bijl, Johan van der Bijl, there. He was the managing director and chairman of Eskom for 26 years, establishing Eskom with a mission to supply cheap, abundant constant electricity to industrialize the Republic of South Africa. In the first 50 years of Eskom, it only had those guys whose pictures are showing in black and white as the leadership. I could bore you with all the names and the history as to who started when. Again, it was a government department fully controlled by the government, as it is today still. Now, this gentleman here, John Maria, he was the managing director of Eskom, and P.W. Botha, the state president at the time, went and approached him and said, listen, we're in trouble. We need you to come and save Eskom. Save it from what? It had built too much power stations, too much capacity. It didn't know what to do with the electricity. In 1987, when he joined Eskom. Well, of course, it wasn't too much. It was too much for the people at the time that were allowed to have electricity. Less than 4 million white people at the time, and their industries. The rest of you, no electricity. John Maria came in, and John is the father of the immediate past chief executive of Standard Bank, Jaco Maree. That's his father. John Maree said to P.W. Botha, and the fingers were reversed. P.W. Botha was known to wag a finger at people. John Maree said, if you ever, I'll take the job on condition one. If I ever see any government official at Eskom and talking to Eskom officials without making an appointment with me or without my invitation, I'll be gone. I will run Eskom as I see fit. And he did. First thing he did, let's electrify the black townships. Soweto is the start in order to use this capacity. And that's exactly what happened. Fast forward to appointing the first black chief executive of Eskom. These are all chairmen in this period. I probably missed one or two. And these are the chief executives. That's Ian McRae, who was chief executive for 9 years. McRae is this one, and this is Alan Morgan. He was chief executive for 7 years. McRae was 9 years. Thulani Cabashe was appointed in 2000 and was chief executive until 2007, the first black chief executive of Eskom. 7 years. This is in 2000. At this time, already the government had said, you are not building any more power stations. Did his tenure and left. I'll show you in another document, in Eskom's annual report, the energy availability factor. How much are the power stations working? What is the rate of work? Or are they available all the time? It was 96%. Today, we are at 56%. Power stations are available only 56% of the time. And in February, when I was there as the spokesperson, they were available at a low of 52%. What was the major decision that was taken at this point? Reduce maintenance and don't spend so much money. Don't waste money on maintenance. And so it goes all the way to where we are now. When people started picking up on maintenance, it was too late. Now, where has that left you and I? At stage 6 load shedding this evening, I'd like to, I hope I can close this without disturbing people. Now, I want to show you, I said we will only deal with the facts. I'm looking for Eskom's annual report for 1994. This is the first annual report done by the current government. And we will search the for what I'm trying to show you here, colleagues, is simple. What was Eskom's state when the government of 1994 took over? This is in 1994. There's a particular number that I was looking at. Okay, I'm not winning. But the Eskom produces 95% of South Africa's electricity from 19 power stations. There we go. That's what I was looking for. My mouse is not working. There we go. From 19 power stations with a capacity of 37,800 megawatts. This is in 1994, ladies and gentlemen, 31 years ago. 19 power stations, capacity of 37,800 megawatts. I want you to think about 31 years ago, how much electricity you consumed, and it will be zero because most of you were not alive. Today, you're consuming a lot of electricity. So there's your number there again, 37,840 megawatts. That is the capacity. It had just reduced from the previous year. And the electricity sold in operations, 149,443 gigawatt hours. In 1994, 149,000 gigawatts hours. This is publicly available information on Eskom's results, and these are audited figures. I deliberately had to take them so that we don't argue about who is right or who is wrong and who's taking what figures. Now, in the 1994 report, I did not go to EAF. It was at 96%. Here we go. This is in March 2022, dropped to 62%. That's the energy availability factor. Your power stations are working only 60% of the time. I want to show you how much electricity was sold 30 years later. Then you can tell me what the problem is. Look at the infrastructure there. 47,000 megawatts that has been added in 30 years, from 37,000 megawatts in 1994 to 47,000 megawatts. In 1994, only 4 million people had access to electricity. In 2022, 60 million South Africans have access to electricity. Do not build power stations. Medupi is still not what it should be, and it was designed by somebody you know. Kusile Power Station was started in 2009. It was meant to be built over a period of 5 years. We are now in 2023. It is 80% done, far from 100%. 13, how many years is that from 2009? That's 14 years. It's still being built. Who made these decisions? Thabo Mbeki asks. The government chooses the board of Eskom. The government decided the board of Eskom must itself, anyone can be a board director if a minister likes you. They will decide who builds power stations, what technology to be used. Who made these decisions? So what is the solution? Simple: build power stations, allow South Africans, industries to build South Africans. Up until 2 years ago, if you wanted to put solar panels on your roof, anything bigger than 1 megawatt, you had to go to the Minister of Energy and ask, can I put solar panels on my own roof to produce my own electricity? And the minister would say no, because by law, only he can decide who generates electricity. We are today sitting without electricity. What is the solution? What is the problem? Apparently, the speaker who was here yesterday said the problem is leadership. He was totally correct. At what level is the answer, is the question he didn't answer. We've been having load shedding for 17 years, and there's a government that has given itself all the power to solve that problem, and only the government must solve that problem according to the laws that it has enacted, and it has been forced by a crisis to now allow you to put as much solar panels as you want and to sell your electricity to whoever wants it. So what is the solution? Build power stations, take the power away from the government, but that is only the solution to load shedding. Everything else is failing. So what is the problem? I thank you.
Thank you very much. And with those final provocative statements, I'm sure there's some questions from the audience. Apparently there's been a request that we do question, answer, because some people felt their questions weren't answered yesterday. So let's try that. Who would like to do the first question? Okay. Do you need the mic? There we go.
Good day, sir. As you noted, we had former Eskom CEO, Matshela Koko, here yesterday, and you said that the problem that we have with Eskom is that we cannot produce enough electricity. Yet he said yesterday the problem was leadership. So I'd like some clarity on that. And I also have another question. You recently resigned from Eskom, and it was also said in other platforms in media that other senior members of Eskom are also leaving Eskom. So now I'm getting curious. Why are senior members leaving? Because now it leaves Eskom with a leadership vacuum. Who's going to fill in those positions? And we just said we are having a leadership problem, yet the people that are supposed to be fixing it are leaving.
Thank you, sir. I hope this works. You can hear? Thank you. Matshela Koko is absolutely correct, and he would be pleasantly surprised to hear that I'm agreeing with him on at least one thing. On leadership, he is absolutely correct that the problem is leadership. I do not know though whether he did tell you where the problem is, what the leadership problem is. What I've done here the last 30 to 40 minutes that I've spoken to, I've told you where the problem is. Everyone that works at Eskom is appointed and accountable to the government that appointed them. Absolutely, there's a leadership crisis at Eskom has been manufactured at the union buildings and at Lutuli House. He's absolutely correct. People like him should never have been chief executive of Eskom if there was proper leadership. That is absolutely correct. Now, why are people leaving Eskom? Everybody leaves every institution all the time. Today here, you have lecturers that were not here 10 years ago, 5 years ago. The institution works, and all institutions are designed to survive the loss of their most talented individuals. Everyone has got an employment contract that has a start date and an end date, even if that is retirement date. Others are on fixed term contracts, such as I was. So it's not a big issue that people resign and move on. As I repeat again, your honored lecturers were probably not here 20, 15 years ago, most of them. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's take another question first, and then if we run out, we'll come back. Okay? Let's see, is there another question? Let's take the question there at the back.
Afternoon, sir. Sir, can you state or explain the criteria for choosing an individual to be part of the board member? Is that not a problem? Because you stated that they're just randomly chosen. Is that not a problem, choosing people who are not experienced properly to be part of the board? So what is the criteria for choosing a person to be the board of ESCOM, to be part of the board?
Thank you, ma'am. Nice question. Let us speak frankly. When the blind are in charge, who is going to point the way? I'm really not even trying to insult people who have that disability. If the people that are in charge are themselves unqualified, how are they able to show us the way? We should never have been in this crisis. Dr. Nyoga, I give you my permission to share all these documents that I've saved on here. When you read them, in the 1994 annual report, which I started with, it says we will reduce the price of electricity real time by 15% over the next 5 years. We'll reduce. At the same time, ESCOM is being told to invest more, to expand more capacity and make sure that many people have got electricity. Where do you get the money to invest in that, in the infrastructure, if you are reducing the price of electricity? If you can just pick and choose anyone, and Parliament does not even have an obligation, is not even told who has been appointed to the board of ESCOM and why. So absolute power in those who are currently running government is what's put us here. They put people like Zetembe Koza, like Ben Ngubane, may his soul rest in peace. They put people like those in charge of ESCOM, and what happened? Money walked out. Where did the money go? Lutuli House. People who may or may not have been here are standing accused in formal court for money that has been lost by ESCOM. Who put them there?
Okay, we have a question right here.
Okay, sir. So the problem seems to have been identified, and it seems like it has nothing much to do with technology or lack of resources, but in the governance of the whole thing, right? So according to you, sir, what would be the solution, or what would you, in your opinion, do to come up with a solution to better the problem at ESCOM? Would you take away power from the government and give it to businessmen, maybe? Or what, according to you, would be the solution?
Thank you. So we have to agree, all of us, that what we do need is electricity. Who owns it, where it comes from, is another story. What we need now is power stations that must be built. Whoever has the capacity to build power stations must be permitted to build power stations. There is a regulator that determines the price. ESCOM does not wake up today and say we'll increase the price of electricity by 20%. It puts together a presentation after looking at what it will pay for coal, salaries of the people, the machines that must be serviced, the spares, and then goes to the regulator, which is NERSA, to say, please, can we be allowed to increase the price of electricity next year by 10%? And every one of us is invited to support ESCOM or oppose that application and show why they are wrong and the price of electricity, for example, should be reduced. In the end, the regulator takes into consideration all of those factors and whether ESCOM will be able to maintain the power stations, and then gives you a price. So there is no possibility of price gouging and you paying through the roof for nothing. Who must build power stations? Anyone who can. Take away the power from the government and allow individuals, companies, and everyone to build power stations, starting by placing solar panels on your roof and being able to sell the excess power to your municipality instead of you having to wait for them to deliver electricity. That's the starting point. But we have created a problem where ESCOM's power stations are today on average, and there's not 19 power stations as you saw in the 1994 annual report, there's now 13 power stations. 13, down from 19 in 1994. The population has increased by a third in that time. So those power stations are on average 48 years old, and they must be closed down at 50. Each power station is designed for 50 years. Any machine has got a lifespan. The cell phone we are using today is not the cell phone we were using 5 years ago. For the same reason, you cannot be using a power station that was built 70 years ago. But that's what ESCOM is doing. He's being forced to use those power stations. Today, it says the infrastructure is broken, so we increase load shedding. Because what is broken? Camden Power Station was built in 1957. My mother was born a year later. She's now retired. That machine is still working. Do you think it's going to still give us? Can you get into a Beetle, a beautiful car? That was built, I think the last was built in 1976 in South Africa. Can you drive that Beetle at 120 kilometers per hour and be in Johannesburg in 12 hours? Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have another question? Yes, I'm going to run up there and take this question.
Thank you so much. Molo Nomzan. I'm a journalist from the School of Journalism here at Rhodes. The question that I'm rising on is with regards to seeing that you were a person who was once in the situation, right? You're an accomplice. And so we would like to know, as the students gathered here, what was the reason for your exit? Because you are telling us, Bana, this is the problem, however, not giving us viable solutions. So why did you leave? As well as the rest of the other panelists who were here presenting to us in the previous days. And then also kind of help us understand your role that you played in maybe alleviating this issue that we are currently facing right now. Thank you.
Let the accomplice answer. Ma'am, I answered the question about my departure actually before anyone, when the gentleman asked why are people leaving. I had a fixed term contract starting on the 1st of February, 2020 and ending on the 28th of February, 2023. I could have renewed it if I wanted to, if I still wanted to work there. I moved on. In my life now, I have been working for 20 years. I have worked for 6 different companies in 20 years. ESCOM was the 7th. I have come and gone everywhere, having done what I thought I needed to do. So that's why, as I said, every employment contract has got a start date and an end date, including here. The prof here has got an end date. It may very well be a retirement date. And someone else has got a fixed term contract. So that is my departure. What did I do? Nice question. So as a start, I have never worked for the government, and I had never worked for the government before I joined Eskom, and I had never had any ambition to work for the government. By government, I include the state-owned entities and all the institutions. However, I was requested by Eskom at the time to come and help communicate to the people of South Africa and tell them exactly what is wrong, what is the problem, what Eskom is doing about it. And do you know what that problem was? Load shedding. I had spent before then 15 years demanding answers from people who worked at Eskom. Guys, why are you reducing maintenance? Why are you stealing the money? Why are your children getting so rich because you work at Eskom and they get contracts that they should never have gotten? Why are you employing this kind of technology? This thing will collapse. Let me give you an example. In July 2014, after a results presentation where Eskom was showing us how it has worked, because every 8 has to report, Chairman, Chief Executive, and the management were all in there, having given us their report, and we would ask our questions. Then we're done, we're packing up and leaving. I see the Chief Executive is talking to someone on that side of the room, and the chairman is, his name is was Zola Tsotsi at the time. He's talking to someone this side. So I walk up to the Chief Executive and say, "Excuse me, Brian Damas, you guys are cooking up a massive storm of load shedding here. Why are you not maintaining the power stations? Is there a crisis here? Is Eskom in crisis?" And the minister was Malusi Kigaba, who said, "Keep the lights on at all costs." Brian Damas said, "There is a big problem coming, and we are not in agreement with the board and with the minister. Us, the engineers, want to maintain the power stations, want to spend more money on maintenance to make sure that we work very well. And the politicians don't think so, including those on the board." I walked up to Zola Tsotsi, who was not within earshot, who did not hear my conversation. I said, "Is there a problem here? You are not maintaining." He said, "There's absolutely no problem. This is the best company. This is the best company. It's being run very well." The following day, I wrote in Business Day a headline: "Eskom Chief Executive, there's a big crisis. Eskom Chairman, there's no crisis. We still are there today." What did I do? I told you what's wrong. Even before I joined Eskom, I told you what's the problem. I told you what the solution should be. That was my job. Did I fix power stations? I've never touched a spanner in my life. That's the job of technicians and engineers. You know fully today what is wrong with Eskom. You said, "I'm not giving you viable solutions." Before I stopped and took questions, I said, "Let's increase generation capacity, build power stations," and there is no other solution. You are using power stations that are 60, 70 years old, that must be closed down now. You need power stations. Do yourself a favor, go check how much infrastructure China is investing in every year. And China has never had a load shedding problem. I saw a hand over there, ma'am.
I think, and this is going to be I think we're over time and we have people that are going to come in. So we have lots of questions. We're going to continue our conversation tomorrow. We will have a last day of our teaching, but it's up to me now just to thank our speaker for coming and sharing his insights. And we enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much. And here we go.